You are listening to the Alouettes Flightdeck, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
All right, folks, we've been cleared for takeoff.
And welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper, along with Cliffy D. Hey, Cliff, it's 20 shows earlier than we did last year, but still, welcome to the season 5 season finale.
Yep, definitely not the season finale we had envisioned, but I think 2020, in a lot of respects, has featured so many things that we have simply just not been able to envision, but as we say all the time, it is what it is, so we'll just make the most of it. And it's still exciting at the end of the day. We managed to get 5 seasons worth of this podcast, and God willing, we'll have at least another 5. So that's definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. Plans we weren't able to do in 2020, we hope to do in 2021 or in 2022. You know, just hopefully with whatever comes of fans and the seats and stuff like that, but so much to talk about. We're happy to have, and we'll play this a little bit later, our interview with Alouettes President Mario Cecchini. He was nice enough to join us on the pod and talk about the team and then what they're looking for in 2021 and beyond. I felt it was very eye-opening. It was nice to speak with him officially for the very first time.
Definitely. We were actually introduced to him this year.
Yep.
Back in January when the Alouettes had the press conference announcing Mario as the new president and Danny Machocha as the general manager of the Alouettes. But we didn't, and we were hoping to get a chance. In a perfect world, we would have already spoken to him at least once regarding the Alouettes and what should have been an exciting, fascinating season for the team on the field and maybe even off the field. But once again, all the best laid plans just kind of got thrown to the wayside. But we had a great chat with Mario this evening, and I'm really excited to be able to bring that to you fans as sort of a kind of a nice way to sort of put a bow tie, if you will, pun totally intended, on not just the Alouettes season that never really got off the ground, but also to kind of finish 2020 on a positive note and going into 2021 where things will hopefully be better than they were this previous season.
Let's hope. And obviously with the news recently with the vaccine being made available currently, and I know it may be a while for some of us fans to actually be eligible. It's weird to say to be eligible for the vaccine, but obviously we know that they have their plans in place. And hey, however it turns out, dude, whether we're wearing masks and it's 10% or 15% at the stadium to start the season, it's as long as everything goes well, it will still be a positive. And as long as this 2021 season does actually get started.
Yeah, as great as it has been to watch NCAA football in the States and also watching the NFL, it's been tough to not have Canadian football in the mix as well. It's unfortunate really that things just didn't quite work out that way to be able to see football in some capacity in 2020 up north of the border. But I think in a lot of respects, though, it's made people sort of appreciate the league a little bit more. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever truly taken the league. Anyone who's a true fan of CFL football, I don't think they've necessarily taken the league for granted, but maybe there are times where you just sort of just expect it to be there. And then when it's not, I think absence really did make the heart grow fonder for a lot of people. And I think just based on everything that's gone on and with the news that's been happening as far as free agency signings happening earlier than expected, I think people like that appetite for football is still there for a lot of people. And now you're seeing that. You're starting to see the Alouettes in the news. You're seeing players being reintroduced, so to speak, and getting fans excited. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, we might see these guys again in 2021. Like, that's exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
And to me, that's key, is getting fans excited, keeping the names on their lips, and just getting people thinking about football. Even though we haven't had a meaningful football game since November 2019, and we won't have one, well, God willing, until June of 2021. That's a long stretch of time to go without football. And I think fans realize that they've got something special here, not just in the Alouettes, but in the Canadian Football League as a whole. And now this is an opportunity to jump back in, to re-up, so to speak, with your CFL fandom. So, folks, be excited because, yeah, even though we still haven't gotten the official go-ahead yet, there's still stuff that's happening right now. Like, things are starting to fall into place. I'd say it's time to get excited again about not just CFL football, but be excited again, folks, about your Montreal Alouettes.
Exactly. And as per usual, when it comes to whenever I'm doing a podcast, no matter what it's about, we drop a show and news is broken a couple of days later. That's exactly what happened in this case. For the earliest time ever in league history, the CFL's 2021 schedule was dropped. And I'm curious to know your thoughts on the minor changes that the league has decided to do for the 21. Obviously, we don't want to talk. We're not going to talk too much about it because obviously we want to get closer to that point where it is going to occur. But what are your thoughts, Cliff, on first the league easily could have just taken the 2020 schedule and just recycled it, but they made a slight modification for 2021 where they decided to reduce travel and concentrate more on teams within your division to save. I said not only save travel, but also potential COVID issues, which they want to stay away from. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, to be honest with you, when I looked at the schedule, like I saw it for what it was, and there's a little cynical part of me is like, well, it's all well and good to put out a schedule, but I mean, is this actually going to actually take place? Like, are we just getting ourselves excited for nothing? And it's kind of a crappy attitude to have, to be honest with you. But when I look at the schedule, I definitely see like the focus is definitely more on interdivision,
yes,
more than anything else,
and
there's certain games that will not be
too.
Yeah. Like I mean, and I think it just means now that each game truly does become more important as you're playing more and more of your divisional foes. Every divisional game counts for sure, and also too, I think the way the schedule was set up was just in the unlikely event that the teams have to go into a bubble. Then this, as you said, it reduces the travel time and the distance that teams are flying in or taking the bus or train in or anything like that. To me, I like the schedule in the sense that it does promote the rivalries. It does sort of help strengthen that ideal. It's going to be kind of weird to see, for example, the Alouettes and the Calgary Stampeders only play once, which is interesting.
And
I think the same
Edmonton
thing with
too. Edmonton also.
Yeah, the Edmonton football team, we only played them once as well. Yeah. Even more interesting is the fact that we're essentially starting the season, both including the preseason, with the Ottawa Red Blacks, playing them not once, not twice, but thrice.
Yeah.
The first 3 games, so to speak, like 2 preseason games and the regular season game, all against the Red Blacks. To me, that's kind of interesting. And I think if you're trying to develop that rivalry between the cities of Ottawa and Montreal, that's certainly one way to do it. It's one way to sort of help promote this, because I don't find really truly that Montreal has a rivalry. It's certainly not on the lines of, say, like Calgary versus Edmonton or Hamilton versus Toronto. So I guess geographically, you kind of have to try and make a rivalry of Montreal and Ottawa. But if that's the goal, then they're certainly on the right track in doing so with scheduling the 2 preseason games and your first regular season game against the same opponent.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out.
And I think, you know what, considering that if people go back and look at the history of these 2 cities, they were always a major rival. This dates back to what they used to call the Eastern Conference, the Big Four. So Ottawa and Montreal do have a storied history. It's just as of late, Ottawa wasn't good, Montreal was, and vice versa. But things have happened over the years, as we remember. We've had upsets. So I think it's a very interesting idea. One thing I thought was funny, though, Cliff, is that how the league is trying to reduce travel costs, and then the Alouettes and BC Lions played twice this year. I was like, what? Something doesn't make any sense here. But, and as you pointed out, too, with Edmonton and Calgary, it's for the first time since 1979 that the Owls won't play at home versus Edmonton and at Calgary. And that was before, I think that was the year before or 2 years before the league went to the full home and home versus the Western Division. So It's been a long time, but it'll be weird. It really will be weird. But you know what? All I can say too, and this is my last word on it, is we still have Thanksgiving, baby.
Yes, we do. And to me, that's what it comes down to. That tradition. We don't have a whole lot of traditions, as we've talked about numerous times.
Yeah.
And that, to me, like being able to go on Thanksgiving Day, you do the tailgate, and they got the deep fried turkey and all the fixins and everything.
Yeah.
You're watching some great football more often than not, and to me, that's what makes it so exciting. I'm really happy that there was just a 1 year pause, so to speak, on this tradition. There's no other way to describe it. It really is a tradition here in Montreal to have a game on Thanksgiving Monday. And I'm thrilled as hell that the Alouettes, they realized how important this game is for the fans, and they've brought it back. They were ready to play it in 2020, and they're even just as ready, if not more ready, I'd say in this case, to play it again in 2021. And that to me is, I'd say, paramount.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, one last thing, and we'll move on because there was some more news when it came to football ops. But what would you think if the league decided to continue this new tradition of reducing travel, even if COVID is gone in 2022, with the idea that the league is trying to get under a new financial structure, trying to save money? Would it surprise you if the league decided to go that route through 2022 and beyond when it came to the schedule?
I guess not. I guess as this league has to sort of evolve and change and realize that it's not making money hand over fist the way we'd like it to. I mean, certain teams are certainly successful and certain teams are certainly not. So as I've said before, the league itself really has to change their business model for the better and find a way to become sustainable for years to come. And if that means you're going to see a lot more travel, like you're not going to see flights going willy-nilly, like you play Toronto 1 week and then you fly out to BC the next, and then you're back home, and then you go to Ottawa, and then you fly back out to Edmonton and back and forth like that. Like if you can find a way to, I guess, cut down on some of that travel and try to make it work a little bit more, in order to save some money, to me, I think it's an avenue well worth exploring.
Yeah, I would not be surprised going forward if the league reduces the travel out east and out west, and reduces, as I said, 2 Western games and 2 Eastern games for each division. I think I would be surprised if they eliminate them going forward. So, yeah, as I said, get back to local, quote unquote, local rivalries. Mm-hmm. So, hey, there was some interesting news that came over the wire and in the media when it came to the coaching staff. What was that? What did the team announce?
Well, they actually finalized their coaching staff for the 2021 season, which meant some changes were being made for any number of reasons. The biggest change, though, would be at defensive coordinator, Bob Slowick, who came in with no CFL experience, managed to shake things up, and actually put together a very respectable group here in Montreal for 2019. He has decided to move on from the Alouettes, and now that frees up the defensive coordinator position. And who has the team decided to go ahead and hire as far as the DC? Well, they didn't have to look very far, because they already had a new defensive backs coach in Baron Miles already set to start the 2021 season. And now he can add defensive coordinator to that title. He still keeps the defensive backs coach title, but now he's also he oversees the entire defense as defensive coordinator, which is pretty exciting because Baron Miles, a former player with the Alouettes, sort of coming back home, if you will, play as a coach now for the Alouettes. We were excited to see him be signed as defensive backs coach, but now to have him add this to his resume is very exciting. In addition to Baron Miles being named the defensive coordinator, we also have a new offensive line coach. As you know, the offensive line coach was, for a little bit, Marcel Bellefeuille, who joined the team in January, but ultimately decided to head back to the University of Ottawa and become their head coach for their football team. So now this left Luc Brodeur-Jourdain, who was the assistant offensive line coach. He now becomes the full-time offensive line coach, which is pretty exciting because after a stellar career here in Montreal, he kind of decided he wanted to give the coaching a try and coming in as an assistant coach in 2019. Now this is his line. This is his crew.
Yeah.
Like now he has a chance to prove what he can do as a coach. Like we saw what kind of career he had on the field. Now I'm really excited to see what Luke can do off the field. And let's not forget too, a former guest on this show came in here and chatted with us. And at the time, it was just before the season was, I think, canceled. He was talking about, we had asked him about like his interest in being the full-time offensive line coach, and you could see it was there. You could definitely tell he was definitely interested and intrigued by the possibility, but he didn't want to say too much at the time. Maybe he already knew that this was kind of becoming his way.
Right.
I guess we'll never really know, but now this is his opportunity, and I definitely think Luke is going to make the most of it.
Yeah, if anybody wants to hear that interview, by the way, it was episode 118 or season 5, episode 10. You can go back and listen to that full interview there. I mean, did any of these moves surprise you? I know you and I talked about with Baron Miles. We talked about that. We threw a couple names out there, being what seems that the league is doing when it comes to doubling up on what coaches are doing, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously the coach's salary cap. Did it surprise you in any way that it was Baron rather than somebody else?
A little bit, if only because I think sometimes when it comes to defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator, in a perfect world, you'd try not to team up, have coaches wearing like 2 or 3 different hats. I know we're used to it, seeing it here in Montreal over the years, and I guess it shouldn't have come as a huge surprise, but I'll admit there was a little part of me that thought maybe, just maybe, we should be having a defensive coordinator doing just that, because we already have Kahari Jones as the offensive coordinator and head coach. That's normal. That you tend to expect. Mm-hmm. But defense sometimes can be a bit of a different animal altogether. Just to be clear, I'm not mad that Baron Miles is the defensive coordinator. I was just, like I said, it's the initial shock of, okay, well, I guess I guess we're just going to have to get used to seeing this league wide, as far as having coaches wearing, as I said, multiple hats, like not just doing one position and doing it very well. You almost have to multitask a little bit. And I guess, that's just par for the course here in Montreal. So now Baron's got a chance to prove what he can do, not just as defensive coordinator, but as defensive backs coach. Luke has a chance to show what he can do on the offensive line. And you still got all these other pieces in place, which is great. And to tell you the truth, like, this coaching staff is very impressive. And I'm, again, even more excited than ever to see what the final product will be. Like, when these guys finally get out on the field with players in front of them, I'm really excited to see how that's going to turn out.
Oh, I know. And hearing it just recent episodes that we had, what Vernon was talking about and what Matt Schiltz was talking about, you can tell they want to play. They want to be able to continue what 2020 was supposed to be, but obviously they're going to have to wait a year. But so much is happening, and we're going to be talking about that after the interview when it comes to free agency. And I think both you and I were a little shocked when we saw the actual names that were on the Alouettes free agency list. We're like, oh crap! But that's for the next segment. But you know what? Baron Miles has his history here. I have no issue with it, and when it comes to coaches, it's the new thing. So I'm not unhappy. I'm not unhappy with our coaching staff. I love it pretty much, actually. So
no, I think as far as the talent that we have on the roster so far, and just knowing who's going to be like in place, like we saw what Kahari Jones was able to do in 2019. We saw how he was able to motivate the players and get them on board and believing in his message. And I think a lot of that ties into with the coaching staff that was in place last year. And for the most part, it's still the same coaching staff. It's just a couple of tweaks here and there. I think that the wild card, so to speak, will be Baron Miles. Yeah. But I think players are going to respond to him. We saw the work that he did out in BC. Like he knows how to coach. He knows how to get the most out of his players. And I have all the confidence in the world that he'll be able to do the exact same thing here in Montreal. And really, truly, like, just now that he's got this sort of additional pressure to be the DC as well as the defensive backs coach, I think that's just going to make him a little bit stronger. And I think you're just going to see what kind of work he's going to put in as far as being a coach goes. And I think the results are going to speak for themselves. Yeah,
for sure. As we teased at the beginning of the episode, we were honored to be speaking with the Alouettes President Mario Cecchini. We'll get to the interview right now, and when we return, man, there's a lot of free agency to talk about. We'll be right back. And what a year we didn't have in 2020, but we want to speak to the gentleman who is, I'm sure, very hard at work in getting the team back on the field and trying to get us ready for the 2021 season. With us now is the president of the Montreal Alouettes, Mario Cecchini. Hey, Mario, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Well, first question I wanted to ask you was, I'm sure when you were first announced as the president back in January of 2020, this isn't the season that you really expected to have, was it?
Well, to say the least, it certainly was not. I mean, going back to January, it was such a fun day, when we were appointed, and I was particularly happy because the fans were so happy that Danny was on board, Danny Matrocha, our GM, of course, and just a week after Gary had bought the team, and he had promised to deliver, a president and a GM within 7 days. So I was happy to be able to get Danny on board. If I remember correctly, it feels like 10 years ago now, but we signed the contract, I believe, on the Friday after I signed mine on the Wednesday. So everything turned out so perfectly. And then, first few weeks, we got excitement and ticket sales are on the rise. Even our friend Duvernay Tardif, who was in the Super Bowl. So everybody in Quebec was talking football, and we were signing Quebec-based players. We're signing good free agents, and then COVID hit. So it really brought it to a halt. We had hopes until, as you guys know, I mean, the league worked hard until July and August, and then we had to call it a game.
All right.
And it was extremely frustrating, extremely disappointing that we couldn't find a way. But that's the way it did. And right up the next day, August 18, after we announced, Danny and I, everybody had our heads down with his scouting team and coaches and Kahari, and we're looking ahead to 2021. Yeah. So that's the only way to look at it. Be looking out to the future.
For sure. And one thing I wanted to ask you, because I didn't get to ask you this at the time of your press conference, Mario, what enticed you specifically to come to the Alouettes to be our president?
Well, that's a good question, because I was in broadcast, as you may know, for all of my career. But in 2010, it's one of the best gentlemen I ever knew in my life, and was a mentor to me, was Jacques Ménard. You may know Jacques, the former, unfortunately passed away. It's an incredible story, because Jacques passed away on my second day on the Alouettes, so he had time to see me there. But in 2010, when Larry left, he called me up. He was on the board of the Alouettes, and I met with Mr. Wittenhall. And at that time, it just, it was many things that was going on, and it didn't work out, but it stayed in my mind, because I'm a huge fan, first of all, of the game. So that's where my love of the game starts. I've always followed the Alouettes. I've always been there, and then to have the chance, to preside over a team. I mean, a landmark in Montreal. So I was like, it didn't work out then, but it always stayed in the back of my mind. So when the opportunity came along and my name was pushed, mentioned around, people were calling me with the other groups that were wanting to buy the team in 2019. And then that sort of, went away, and then we didn't hear anything for like a few months, and then boom, Gary buys, and then boom, Gary calls me on the Sunday night, and by Tuesday it was done. So it was, I don't hesitate to call it a dream, in the sense that I had the chance to be the president of broadcast groups in Quebec, broadcast groups in Canada, with Chorus, and then to have a chance to go into sports, be on the other side of the table, and be able to take a team that needs a lot of TLC, that had economic challenges, and turn this around, and do it with Danny, and a passionate owner like Gary. I mean, and a great team that I discovered, that kept most of all the managers that were there are working with me now, and we have a common goal, to make it the best. So So that's to me, it's like it was literally something I wanted to do in my life for the past, and Jacques brought that to me. He made me believe that I could do it. So I'm very glad that I'm here today.
That's what I wanted to ask you, because obviously you're coming from broadcasting, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that you've been ahead of a pro sports franchise. What do you do to get ready to be the president of a sports franchise versus working in media for most of your life?
That's a good question. Listen, not really. It's a business, first of all.
Yeah.
But to bluntly answer your question, what I did is a lot of reading, a lot of talking, a lot of consulting, a lot of observation with people I trust, people I know, people who were in the game. But other than that, you look at it from a business point of view, a lot of it is the same principles. When you're in broadcast, you focus on ratings.
Right.
So therefore, your announcer or your music or the kind of show that you do, if you're a talk show or a radio station with sports, you focus on the content, you focus on the animators because they're the content. They're the people come to listen to them.
Yeah.
So that's where you put your energy first. Same thing with the field. When I got there, first thing there was a little bit, I think it's known, you guys know, it was not, the administration part of the Alouettes is downtown. The football ops is at the stadium. The president was not in the same place as the football operation.
Right.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal at all. So these are the first things that we fixed, got together. And so to me, that's whether it's a radio, TV station, or it's a football team, the principle of getting together, sharing a common goal, not be divided, but be united towards the objectives is the first principle. If you remember at the press conference, that's what I said. One of our first goals is to be united. Mm-hmm. And maybe I should not have said that because since then we're all at home. We cannot be more separated because of COVID. But it's unbelievable. We had to build a new culture and a new way of thinking through literally a computer screen now for 9 months and most likely 10 and 11 months the way things are going now. So it is. But to me, that's the way I really look at it. Set the product and make the fans / the listener when you're in broadcast happy. It starts there. The rest will flow out of that. So it's really how I sort of look at it.
As everybody knows, obviously, as you mentioned before, there were some budgetary and some monetary issues that may have arose in the past seasons. When you came in, how if you can tell us, how dire was the Alouettes franchise? Was it as bad as people said, or was it just information that people didn't know? Was it an exaggeration in the media?
Well, I can tell you, because Gary said it publicly, that it was not necessarily exaggerated. There were some very, very tough years. The last one was basically a $10 million loss, which is an important loss for a football team in the CFL. So, yes, it was a tough situation. Still is, of course, in the sense that now after the team was purchased, we turn around and there's no revenue. Right. There's literally our revenue is linked to our games, so there's no revenue coming in. So we have to suffer through a year that it's pure losses. Every dollar we spent right now is a loss. Right. So it is a situation that's not, that we need to get over with. But at the same time, get over. But Gary is extremely committed to the long term. That's the huge difference with a new owner living this right now. We are committed for the long term. And Gary understands it, and we're doing our best to manage it. But I think our plans are going to get us to where we want. Hopefully within 2-3 years, it's quite doable. We've reduced the cost base, which again, unfortunately, in the past 20 years in broadcast, we had to do a lot of that. So there was nothing new to me in terms of turning around and finding, new structures and when you have a structural problem, sometimes you need a structural solution attached to it. And that's what we try to look at. Obviously, unfortunately, less people than when I came in, of course. But then it brings an agility. It brings a different way of thinking. We have now a one-team approach where the talents of different people in different departments can shine, above their main duties. So somebody in marketing can be in social media if they have a talent to write. And so all of these things are making us one. And, I believe that we're now set up, to go ahead and not only win the cup, but obviously win off the field also, and making sure that the admin side is helping out and be part of the winning team overall.
Yeah, and for me, just to let you know, I think one of the things that I have noticed, even though that I've had some changes in the gentleman who was my season ticket manager, when I had a change over, even during COVID, and I think this points to how you and we're leading the team, is that I've never had a team reach out to me, call me up during COVID and say, "How are you?" Usually when you think of season ticket managers, it's like, "Oh, do you need any more tickets?" This, that, and the other. Completely different, Mario, than what I was expecting. So it was, whether I heard it from not only from, longtime season ticket holders like myself, but from ones that had just been with the team for a couple of years. They got a call from the season ticket manager saying, "We just want to know how you're doing. How are you surviving? How are you and your family doing? Are you healthy?" And then just recently, I got an email wishing me happy holidays. Those are the things that mean the most to me as a season ticket holder and as a fan, because, again, I think it points to leadership where you're looking at things differently, where it's not always about, yes, it's about the butts in the seats, that I get, but it's also about the relationship that your team is making with your fans and hopefully with future fans.
Well, you're very, very kind to mention that, because it is something that when you start talking this way to people, it's always where will we find the time? And we don't have this, we don't have that, but they do. And you know what, those who make those calls, and when I write those emails, sometimes it's from me, sometimes it's from Brian, our head of ticketing, but it is, first of all, I write it myself. What you get from me, signed by me, is written by me. So it's personal. So I encourage Brian. I say it's not a marketing person trying to craft a message.
Right.
So we brought all that really back to personalize. It's personal for us. And the passion, if you were sitting in my seat, you would feel the passion, the good vibes, the comments I get. I get emails from fans and sponsors even, and ticket holders, like showing empathy for us, for our situation.
Yeah.
That we couldn't play and we have no revenue. That touches me so much, because everybody's so busy that they take the time to think of me. It's just normal that then we take the time to think of what makes us great, and what makes us great is our fans.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if we play in front of an empty stadium, we're not happy. And we need to build that up also.
That's true.
So taking care of our people, of our fans, is exactly what we need to do. In my first speech with the team, I said, I come from a world where we have listeners, we have viewers. A little bit. They are fans in a way, but they're not diehard fans.
Right.
It's so fun to work in an environment where you literally have diehard fans, people who are just using that word, that love your team, love your logo, love what you put on the field, love the entertainment that you bring, the 3 hours that they spend with us, that they have a good time. I mean, it's so fulfilling. I mean, you have to respect that, and you have to honor that.
For sure. Cliff.
Okay, Mario, with 2019 being such an incredible season for the Alouettes, despite all the stuff that was going on off the field, now with new ownership in place, with yourself in place and Danny Machocha in place, there's a sense that maybe now things are going in the right direction, and then with COVID hitting, everything just sort of stopped in its tracks. What were some of the goals that you had in mind personally as far as being president for 2020? Had everything gone to plan? Like, had we played the season like we were supposed to? Just sum up for us what your idea was as far as being president for 2020 in the Alouettes was supposed to go.
Well, absolutely a improvement on our record. making sure that we support Kahari. So, if we wanted no less than, I know Gary kept saying, 18-0. That's always the goal for every team. But ultimately, to improve on our record and I believe we had the team to go to 12, 13, 14 victories. Absolutely, to give everybody else in the league a run. So we were legitimate contenders in terms of the cup. We would have been in 2020. Supporting Kahari, everything on the field was extremely important. Giving him the team that he wanted around him. Would have been his second year, of course, and all the promises that he showed and all the energy that he brought to the stadium and to the Alouettes and the team. I mean, he was the ultimate leader last year in a season where, to your point, there was no ownership. It was up and down. We were hearing so many things in the media. So that was always the first goal. Always going to be the first goal. Surround the team with the best players that we can in the context of free agents and those who want to come here. What you heard this week actually is a great testimony to that. I'm sure you followed the signings we had this week, the week of December 14, and it was to be able to bring back William, to be able to have Vernon rework his contract, to bring Tony in, to bring Eugene in, to make sure that the core stays together. That to me speaks to the leadership of people. First of all, guys wanted to play Montreal in front of our crowd, and then obviously speak to the leadership of Kahari and Danny and how we respect them and explain the situation, and they get it and they embark. So that was goal number one. And after that was all about, getting, to your expression, more butts in the seats, making sure that financially we're on the viable track, and we were. At the time we had high double-digit growth in season tickets. We were so much looking forward to single game tickets and group sales and everything that the crowd is made of. I think we sold more merchandise this year, guys, dollar-wise, than we did in 2018 without a season. So it gives you a sense, and that all through the web, of course, so it gives you a sense of how much people are looking forward to football. So all these things we're putting together, we have our offers for our people. I even put a promo code under my name on Facebook. Everybody just embarked on building revenue, at the end of the day, which was the objectives. But it starts with winning. It starts with the good product on the field. So there was, as you can see, and I can talk for an hour about the objectives, but those were the main things. Bring back people focused on two things: a great team. We have our cost base now as a business that is in a much better place, and then now we're up to building the revenue all around it.
Okay. And working with the league, because all 9 teams are obviously feeling this pandemic and also feeling the frustration of not playing. But as you look towards 2021, the commissioner of the league has talked about a lot of things seems to be very contingent on a vaccine for COVID-19. And hopefully if that's in place, then it's going to make it easier for the players to play and maybe even have fans in the stands again. How much discussion are you personally having with the league officials as far as trying to ensure that the 2021 season actually does take place?
Listen, it's our number one priority. First of all, I think I said it, you probably heard me say it, but I'm really optimistic at this point. We have the luxury of, hockey right now is trapped a little bit because they want to start in January in the worst of times. If you look at what happened in Thanksgiving in the U.S., since then it's been difficult. So people are really afraid, as we all know, about Christmas and what's going to come after. In our case, we're down in June. Could there be a mix of maybe 1 or 2 games with limited fans, or maybe even ultimately no fans? But then in the fall, I have to think that, with 50, 55, 60% of the people vaccinated, where every elderly person, every somebody who's more susceptible to a dangerous fate if they get COVID, and then everybody are guardian angels, as we've come to call them, who takes care of us. When they're all vaccinated and protected, as we start with them, it's gonna be a much better place already. So yes, we are talking a lot about the vaccine. And as far as working with the league, it doesn't go. First of all, we have regular meetings with all the presidents, and talking to the league is a daily or weekly basis at worst. But it's extremely frequent. We keep each other updated. Lots of scenarios on the table in the sense of possibilities, but we're really focusing on trying to make everything work, and everybody's in the same sense of urgency in order to make sure that we don't neglect anything. Sanitary measures, we're all talking each to our provincial governments as much as we can, as fast as we can. And since I was in a way very happy that Mr. Legault, our Prime Minister, spoke with Jeff Molson. I think this week. I'm assuming we'll be awarded the same courtesy when it comes our turn to look for solutions. And same thing with people from the Grand Prix in Montreal, people from the Rogers Cup. We all, if the Canadians get that courtesy, I'm assuming that we will all get that courtesy down the road in order to help us out. So if need be, one of the things small things we need to think about, for example, is the quarantine. If a guy gets hurt and we want to bring a guy from the States on a Tuesday and the game is on a Saturday, you cannot do a quarantine, So we have to find ways that can he be tested before, tested when he comes in, maybe do 1-2 negative tests within the first 48 hours, and then he can play. These are the things that we'll be looking for with the government to help us out and making sure that without, respecting all the rules, but again, project yourself when 30 or 40 or 50% of the population is vaccinated, hopefully, and we're in the summer. So we're not talking about next week in our case, which is very encouraging to me.
We talk about players, and if that were to be the case, and let's say we go into the season, and you're only allowed limited amount of players, people in the stands, et cetera, but to that point with the players, has the league, as far as you know, has the league looked at a possibility of having maybe a bubble of extra players that they will allow a team to sign just in case? Obviously, only for 2021. Because that situation you said, it might make it easier if they expanded the practice rosters or if they did something like that. I'm just curious to know how open has the league been to ideas specifically for what ifs for 2021?
Well, I think this type of innovative or temporary solution to 2021 season that sometimes does not need to be discussed with the players from a CBA point of view, collective bargaining agreement point of view. But we will be looking at all these innovative things. But I would say to those specifics will come much later. Well, I say much later. In March and April, when we have a better idea of the situation, because those are sort of I wouldn't never say easy fixes. But these are decisions to carry more players or not. It's a cost, of course. You have to pay those guys, so we have to be, conscious of that. But certainly, it's something that the example that you're given that will be discussed if need be. But we'll see where we are at that point. Because right now there's a lot of things. Also, one thing we've learned from this fall. From last spring, and I always stress the fact that the CFL, keep in mind, was probably the first league to have not started their activities when COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So the others had end of season, so the revenue is in, the sponsorship is in, TV rights are all in. All of these things were sort of quote unquote paid to the teams. And we were going in. Just look at the NHL right now. Look, the starting is a challenge because you're literally looking at a very, very a deep financial hole
Right.
You know, nobody's going to make money in the NHL probably, I would guess, next year. So it's tough to go in a situation like that. So we were first in line, and one thing we've learned is that from I always say, remember, guys, in March 12th, when we were told as Quebecers, this will be a 2-week holiday, if you remember.
Yes.
The Ministry of Education said to the kids, take it as a 2-week vacation. And here we are today, 9 months later.
Mm-hmm.
So the situation was so much changing and evolving between March and April and May and June that every time we did a scenario in April, we had to tear it up because things had evolved differently in May and then June. And so, I mean, it was... So right now we're a bit more patient, and we know what can be decided rapidly, but we won't do 20. And it's not wise to do a lot of scenarios before.
Right.
The time is right to make the decision.
I can tell you, Mario, that if it comes to the point where fans are allowed in the stands, no matter how many they are, even at a small percentage at Percival Molson, I know that. And Cliff and I have talked about this, is that we will do our parts. If we have to wear masks, we'll wear masks because we want to make sure that everybody is able, sooner or later, will be able to come back to Percival Molson without masks and be able to be 20,000 strong once again in that stadium. So I know myself and I know other fans will be willing to do our part if we are allowed in the stadium, early in the season.
Well, it's appreciated because I'm pretty sure that when we talk to the sanitary measures, we will probably enforce those. We'll find out how to way. I don't know if it's a mask or it's one of those visors,
mm-hmm.
Because I want you to have a good time eating your hot dog also. So there's all these things that we need to think about, like we are thinking about having a service to your seat. So you don't have to get up. So we minimize the contact between people getting up. We even have some ideas to that you can order, your food like 2 days before the game.
Okay.
Online with your seat number and give us an approximate time of when you want it. If the game starts at 1, you want it at 1, you want it at 1:30, you want it at 2, and we'll try to make it work. So all these things we're exploring. To, again, thinking of the fans and making the life a little bit easier.
I like that because I know Cliff and I had, we talked to some of the players before and talked to some other people that we had known, and, they were like, well, we really don't know what the team's going to be doing, but it's glad to hear from you, Mario, to give us some ideas that the team is making plans just in case. That's the main thing, and I hope fans, when fans hear this type of information from you, that it hopefully it will ease any concerns that they may have once the season, gets going. So,
for sure. I mean, we will try to make it as comfortable as we can, given the situation that we are in. Absolutely.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about, and we'll try to get away from COVID. We can't really get away from COVID, but I want to try to get you some positive talk here about the team itself.
Yeah.
Obviously, you came in last year. Montreal really does not technically have any traditions. And when you came in last year, the schedule had already been announced, and finally, Thanksgiving was back on the schedule after a hiatus of 1 year. To you, working as much as you have in the different, different industries, how important? Obviously, it's back again for 2021. Also, Thanksgiving. How important to you? It's to finally to establish some well-known traditions for Montreal Alouettes football.
Huge. I mean, the calendar in Montreal, the schedule, I mean, we were a team of literally 6 people on the call.
Mm-hmm.
And I was part of every meeting. I was part of every call. Danny was part of it. Kahari was part of it because we want to make sure the football side is happy. Want to make sure the ticketing side is happy, sponsorship is happy. We have some specials on Friday night, as you know, also.
Yep.
I assume that you're aware. So there is. We think of all of that. We think about rivalries.
Yep.
I think a Montreal-Ottawa rivalry would be a great thing, hopefully, as we see in hockey. I mean, this is the team that's closest to us. Ottawa is the site, is the thing that it's easy to make a Quebec-Ottawa fight on every level.
Right.
So that's something that we're looking forward and thinking about. But absolutely, the games, when you saw the schedule, we're trying something new this year also to have an opening season the weekend after the Grand Prix in June while the kids are still in school. So that pleases some. Others were not, it was a bit different. But when we did that in the past, it was a good success. I mean, I got a research background, right? So I love data. So and we have a great BI manager with the Alouettes who can give us data. So we try to look at the crowds and try to see what makes, obviously a bigger crowd makes more people happy. So we're trying out new stuff. We'll see. But I mean, the tradition has got to be there. The Thanksgiving game was extremely important to us. And we'll go from there. Even we are playing around the weekend of Labor Day also, which is in the CFL, extremely important also. Or bye weeks.
Yeah.
Or if you remember 2019, Kahari was not too happy with the bye weeks. They were spread out. I think we played 9 straight. I think we had like 3 breaks in the first 9 games.
Yeah.
And then 9 straight games leading into the playoffs, which was, unfair from my point of view. I remember one of my first meetings was about that, where I made it clear that schedule didn't make sense. We had opening nights for the past 2 years on Friday night in the West at 9 p.m. For our fans, a Friday night at 9 p.m., it's not good for us. It's not good for RDS. So we changed these things a little bit, I'm pretty happy with the schedule. A lot of people were involved. I'm pretty happy with the schedule, and it's really important to us.
I was actually glad. I think Cliff was too. Is that you guys brought back Saturday games? Because I mean, I understand Thursday night football has become a thing in the CFL. I completely understand that, and I just felt that in years past that the Alouettes were always the default team to be put onto a Thursday night game at home. I'm actually glad since Sunday games have been eliminated during the regular season.
Yeah,
I'm glad to see that they've moved them to Saturdays because I think there seems to be more of a balance. Because I think Saturday games actually are a good fit. I understand that the Owls are having to juggle with the McGill Redbirds for football. I understand that. So I'm just happy to see that everything's being looked at across the board when it comes to games. As you said, you have the information, right? You might as well go ahead and use it.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is that's all about optimization. You'll never make everybody happy. I mean, we have, some love Thursday night, others love it less. Some love Saturdays, some love 1 o'clock, some prefer 7, sometimes 4. But I think there is a conscious. I think the CFL also realizes that they want big money. They want Montreal, Toronto, BC to succeed also.
Yes.
So I'm very happy. This year we only have 1 game at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is great for the people.
That's good.
Away. You can still and I mean there's Winnipeg that's at 8:30. But other than that, even our BC game, we managed to have it at 4 p.m. down there. Danny and Kahari were okay with that, so it plays at 7 in Montreal. It's a back-to-back against BC this year. So, 2 weeks back-to-back, so that's going to be fun also.
Yeah.
So, it's very, again, we have the fan. The fan is at the heart of everything that we do.
Yeah. Cliff.
All right, Mario, with everything that's been going on as far as just trying to get fans excited about football again, trying to remind them just how much fun it was as they go into 2021. Has there been talk of any new strategies as far as trying to attract not just more fans into the stadium, if they're allowed to be, but also as far as sponsorship goes? Like in addition to working with the current sponsors that you have, like has there been any talk of trying to find any new and exciting sponsors that will really appeal to Alouettes fans?
Yes, interesting. First of all, I mean, the basic efforts of showing off and, literally demonstrating that being associated with the Alouettes is good for one's product. We started with making sure that our presentations type and what we present as data to our sponsor is pertinent and what they're looking for. We've changed a little bit our attitude in terms of making sure that we listen to their needs first. It sounds basic, but sometimes when you race to get money, you forget the principles, and it's not good because it makes for short-term relationships. Because if it doesn't work, sponsor won't come back. We are looking forward pretty much to announcing, just before this call, actually, I was emailing with an announcer that we're looking forward to announce if it works out. And probably we'll have some good announcement in early January in terms of new sponsors that are joining us, and I hope that's going to get the wheel turning. New categories also, things that you will probably have not seen in the stadium. So we have, tremendous, so proud of the team that what they did over the past 4 months in engaging and just, I'm looking for the English word, but sort of, planting seeds.
Okay.
In terms of, people were not in the mood. To what you said a bit earlier, they did not know about the marketing budgets back in the summer, and nobody knew a little bit what the fall was going to look like, what's going to be cut or adjusted in the marketing budget, so they have choices to make. But we planted a lot of seeds, believe me, a lot of seeds. And right now we're starting to reap a little bit. I'll actually be happy if we can sign more advertisers than I anticipated around Christmas time, before Christmas time. And then that's going to get the ball rolling, I'm pretty sure. And as the news get better, the economy starts up a little bit again, I think that will help. The good thing about the Alouettes is it's concentrated, and we are affordable in the sense that we have 10 games. We don't have 42 games.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, so it makes it just by the nature of the game, you can have a pretty darn solid marketing plan with us for something that is affordable, I would say, or more affordable for a bigger number of companies. So I'd say within the last 4 months, we probably touch on 6 or 7 categories that we never touched before. And so that to me bodes well for the future.
Good. And also, in speaking with previous presidents of this organization, one of the things that they talked about many times was trying to strengthen the Alouettes' hold in Quebec itself, like to really establish the fact that this is Quebec's football team. Again, with everything being put on hold due to COVID, has any of those discussions taken place? Is that sort of a goal as well, as to strengthen this football team's hold in Quebec?
Yeah, it is. You will see there's a couple of clear action items that we have on the table in order to demonstrate that hopefully, again, we can make it happen. Obviously, it's a situation where COVID can throw a curve into that. You cannot go into schools. You cannot do a tour. You cannot go around different cities. But definitely it's a preoccupation in terms of, I mean that in a good way, in terms of it's always on top of my mind. We need to solidify, that's it, the core. But absolutely, I mean, there's so many football fans in this province that we just need to be present, to reach out, lend a hand. And I'm sure that if we do lend our hand towards the different markets outside of Montreal, they will pay us back. I mean, before COVID hit, I was actually planning to do tours of chambers of commerce, for example, in Trois-Rivières and Sherbrooke and Victoriaville and Quebec City, and obviously do a tour and reintroduce the Alouettes. But having managed radio station in all of these markets, I can tell you that they can smell phony 100 miles away. Mm-hmm. So you really have to demonstrate it. They won't take lip service. You need to make sure that you're there, that the players are there, they're committed, that if you can do a tour here and there, you need to show up. And we do in schools. We did last year. So we will try to accelerate that. It's not easy because there's so many things that are challenging right now, but that is certainly in the top 10 of the things we need to do. All
right, fantastic. Well, I mean, I tell you what, like it's been a challenging year for Alouettes fans, for CFL fans, for football fans, really across the nation. Just to hear you talk about just these ideas and just it gives us hope. It gives us hope that maybe, just maybe, things can finally turn a corner for 2021, and we can get back to actually seeing football being played, whether we got fans in the stands or not. I think as long as we actually get two teams on the field, give them a ball, tell them to play. If we can just get that much done, I think that'll be a huge victory as far as being fans of the sport is concerned.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It is all about that. The fans can rest assured that all of our focus right now, all of our efforts, it's towards that goal. So, and certainly we'll do all our best to make it happen.
For sure. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you before we let you go, Mario, obviously there are a lot of challenges during this last 9 months. We may have not seen it as fans or through the media, but was there something in particular that you wish that you had done during this time that you wish you had done better on? Because as I said, we didn't have a season. You had so many plans. Was there something that you wish that you had done better, even as much as you could have, if you understand what I'm saying?
I think I do. Well, we have to go back to how we handle, the whole situation. I mean, to me, as a group, I'm not blaming anybody, but as a group, it was a disappointment that we obviously did not play.
Right.
So when you start analyzing all of those meetings, all of those discussions, I think I did say that I think financially it would have been financially would have been so costly that it could have hurt the years after.
Yeah.
So I do believe it was the right decision, given the context. But I always feel hurt when I say it was the right decision.
Yeah.
We were discussing every day. Was discussing with Gary. I used to have a company that was called DSJ Solutions because my credo was there's a solution all the time. And as I came in, there's always something you can do to impact the outcome of a situation. And we couldn't in that case. So that has to resonate as a disappointment, obviously.
Yeah. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question, but looking forward, if everything goes according to plan, fans are allowed within Percival Molson for the 2021 season to watch the Owls play at some point. Are you able to tease something that the fans may see at a game this year?
You mean as part of entertainment?
Sure, entertainment or fan trips, fan plane, anything of that sort. Just to hype up the season and get fans excited.
Probably too early. I would keep you on the edge of your seat on that one. We have a lot of discussions going on. I don't want to give an example that we might take away because it's sort of when you're in the middle of the brainstorm.
Yes.
You think you have a great idea, but then you have a better one the next day, and you keep it going. But there is a lot of talk. What I can tell the fans is there is a lot of talk around that. I mean, things that you mentioned like the fan plane, the train to Ottawa and stuff like that. That's always on the table, and hopefully we can make it work again. But absolutely, there is new things. One of the things that I can say that is dear to my heart is I want to make sure that every season ticket holder, for example, somewhere during the season has access to the field. I would love for every season holder either 2 hours before to be my guest, after the game, not all at once, of course. You cannot have 4,000 people, especially not in COVID times, but that every season ticket holder and hopefully every 10-year-old boy or girl that still lives within us, that when they go to a stadium, they look at the field and all they think about is wanting to be on the field. Mm-hmm. I want this experience I want kids and older kids, 50-year-old kids, to be able to live that, to be able to maybe, meet a player or two an hour after a game or 2 hours before, certainly shake Danny's hand and Kahari And if they're interested, anybody, I'll be, I'll be able. I will want to meet everybody. I mean, my own personal objective is, I'm selling. The president used to have a box, and I put that box is for sale for whoever wants it, because I want to be with the fans. I want to shake the hands of everybody that I can meet and thank them personally, because that's where it's going to start next year, and making sure that our fans again are feel appreciated. And I want to make sure of that on a personal basis. So that's something that I want to make sure that a lot of people already did, but not everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that experience is at least shared. And, sometimes the ticket holder can bring, a new person to the stadium, or a different kid to the stadium, a nephew, a niece, and share that experience. So that's something.
Yeah. And is there, because I remember there was a plan before, and I'm hoping this is the case. What in 2021, wasn't this team originally going to had planned on what anniversary was it, Cliff?
It was the 75th.
75.
Yeah. Is the team still planning on having that celebration? Hopefully.
Well, we will probably underline it.
Okay.
But clearly, because of COVID and the situation, we will have things that will come up. But let's say that we'll have a bigger party when we turn 80 years old.
There you go.
Let's put it that way.
Perfect.
And hopefully, 80 years old, that would be 2026. And hopefully that's around that time that we will have the Grey Cup back in Montreal. Crossing my fingers on that one.
That would be nice.
When the stadium, because they need to do reparations on the stadium. So we're not able to, bid for it in the short term. But around 2025, 2026, we'll be able to bid for it. Maybe 2024 if we're lucky. So hopefully that's a year when the whole celebration, and hopefully with our team in the game, happens in Montreal.
Yeah, we need that party here again. We really do.
Yeah. It's been too 100%. Long. 2008. It's been too long.
It's been too
Absolutely.
Long. Cliff, take us home.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Mario, I can't tell you just how excited we are to talk with you and to share some of these thoughts and ideas and just to help get ready for 2021, because I think I speak for all of us when I say, like, we're ready to just put 2020 in the rearview mirror and just focus on the positive, focus on something new in 2021, and hopefully getting this football team back on the field, getting fans back in Percival Molson Stadium, and just knowing that you're working behind the scenes and doing everything you can to help bring that experience back to the city of Montreal. We can't thank you enough for everything that you're doing for the team and with the team. And if you could just give the fans that are listening just some sort of message of hope, something that says, you know what, in 2021, we are doing everything we can to make this happen, but just give the fans something to look forward to, especially as far as 2021 goes.
Well, I can tell you that I think you've said a lot of key words in there, Clifford. There is all about it's. I've never worked longer hours than I did in the past 4 or 5 months, and I have a lot of faults, but I've always been a hard worker. So that these past months I've been incredibly busy. I just feel I would encourage every fan to read and listen to what William Stanback, Vernon Adams, Gino Lewis, Tony Washington, Bédard, Christian Matt, everything they said this week that illustrates how much they want to play in Montreal and how much their heart is in Montreal. And William, the first one, mentions the crowd, mentions the team, mentions how welcome he is here. All we need to do is build that back. We're working behind the scenes. Our part is to make it happen. And the part of every fan is to be there to support us and, go crazy and have fun at games. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And we will make sure that the experience within the stadium is safe. Sanitary measures, if need be, will be in place. And new services will, the one thing, we'll always try to make the best comfort we can within the stadium that we have and enhance the romantic aspect of that stadium. And we'll try to light it up. And that's what we're going to do in the coming season, hopefully.
And we want to thank Mario, obviously, for coming on the show, Cliff. Considering the amount of time that he gave us to talk, it was really appreciated. First time that we've actually spoken with him on the pod. He did give us some pretty good insight into his career and hopefully what's to come for the Alouettes in 2021.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, it's definitely appreciated for him to take some time out of his evening to spend talking with us and essentially talking with you, the fans, as well, because I think it's important for him to relate just to, how important it is to talk about what's happened in 2020 as well as what to look forward to in 2021. And I tell you what, folks, like there's a lot to be excited about when you really truly think about it. I mean, I think what it comes down to is we don't know what's going to happen in 2021 as far as the CFL goes, whether they're really putting all their eggs in the COVID vaccine basket or not. But at least if nothing else, we can take solace in knowing that the Alouettes are doing everything they can to be ready for 2021. So if that doesn't get your juices flowing, folks, I honestly don't know what will.
Yeah. And it was, again, we hope to have him on again, obviously in different circumstances, give a little bit some more information, but I think it's a perfect interview for the season 5 finale. So I think it worked quite well. And again, thanks to him for joining us.
Absolutely.
The thing that I think that we want to talk about now, just to finish up the show, is the free agency lists were announced by the league and for every team, and it was kind of scary. I know you and I had talked about it a little bit when the lists actually came out, and I think, wasn't it the Alouettes had the team that had the most free agents? I think it was by one, if I'm not mistaken, that were available in the CFL.
Yep, one or two, if I'm not mistaken. It was definitely the most, anyways. Like there was definitely a lot of holes to fill, if you will, or at least a lot of question marks left by, okay, are we able to retain a lot of these guys or any of them, or what's going to happen? Because this is a big list right here. So there was definitely a lot of question marks as to whether Danny Machocho was able to convince all of these guys to stay on board or any of these guys to stay on board. So, I mean, he definitely had his work cut out for him. So, as soon as the 2021 offseason officially opened for business, it was time for him to get to work. And we were just curious to see who all he was going to get signed.
Exactly. And considering that, the whole rumors of, it looks like the CFL is hinting at or suggesting or whatever they're pushing them to the edge of, when it comes to, we want you guys to only, we love you to sign at the salary cap floor rather than go up to the max. And I know that was quite a thing of contention when it came to, I think, the PA and when it came to, how fans were thinking about this. But people need to remember that it is available. You see some of these teams in sports today, and they only spend, like Beanball in Oakland and stuff like that. Moneyball in Oakland. It's available. If you can do it, if you can win, then by all means. But I kind of understand why it was suggested because of what's coming up. And I think, Mario made a couple of good points when it came. There was no money. There's no money. Coming into these teams, it's all up to the owners and stuff like that. But it will be interesting to see who stays and how some of these players will be able to hopefully be able to come back to the Owls because, money is a thing. But I also think that the Alouettes do have an upper hand when it comes to retaining a lot of these players, Cliff, just because of the coaching staff that we have coming back for the Alouettes and a coach, head coach, Coach Kahari.
Yeah. And I think also, too, there was also that sort of pressure, if you will, of you signed a lot of these players in 2020 thinking that they'd be part of the 2020 season, which never took place. Now, all of a sudden, they become free agents again. And now you're left wondering, did we just sign someone that may never they would be an Alouette in name only? Like they'd never actually wear the uniform or actually be considered a true Alouette. Like this was another thing that was under consideration as well.
Yeah, that's true. And obviously, if you see their player card in 2021, you'd never know it, right?
Right.
I don't think it'll just say 2021, or we'll skip 2020 altogether, and it'll just. But of the list itself, Cliff, because I know we're about to talk about the most recent signings that have come across over the past couple of days. Who do you think was the most important name to get back on this club?
I think, honestly, I look at names like Eugene Lewis and B.J. Cunningham, got like real core guys for this team, like guys that work extremely well with Vernon Adams on the offense. And to me, those are the kind of guys that you definitely want. Like, you want to maintain as much of your nucleus as possible. I mean, there's always a lot of question marks surrounding anytime you add new players to the mix, and guys like Junior Luke, David Menard, Naaman Roosevelt, like those were interesting, even exciting names to be adding to the Alouettes in 2020. But the fact that they never actually played for the Alouettes and once again became free agents again, like that too is a bit of a question mark. But yeah. I think as far as maintaining your core guys, like the guys that were there in the locker room in 2019, the ones that know everything that basically happened for the Alouettes, and just that sort of resurgence, that rebirth of football in Montreal, that excitement level again, I think is, as far as I'm concerned, it's crucial to maintain those guys that Vernon works with and has chemistry with, and that they're going to make exciting plays happen. So to me, like those are two of the many crucial guys that I felt the Alouettes had to retain going into 2021.
And obviously, we want to get a lot of these guys under contract before the actual free agency period begins, which is in February 2021. So it'll be, I think, with schedule being released, and now we're able to stay in the, where the CFL obviously will stay on the lips of fans because, as we're saying, many teams are making many signings, and as we've learned from the Alouettes, it's 2021 has already started. So obviously it starts with names that may not necessarily be on the free agency list, and that did happen. It's somebody that we had already made changes in how to replace this person, but luckily for us, and I guess for the Alouettes fans, before all the free agency signings were announced, we found out that Will Stanback will be back in Alouette colors for 2021.
Oh yeah, I mean, and this is exciting for any number of reasons. I mean, we already know what William Stanback has done in an Alouettes uniform, in and above itself. But what's truly interesting, though, is in 2020, with William Stanback going to the NFL, trying to make his way there, the Alouettes had ended up signing James Wilder Jr. to sort of, I don't want to say necessarily replace him, but sort of fill that void that Stanback left when he went to the NFL. And then, lo and behold, just before what would have been training camp for the Alouettes, James Wilder decided to take his retirement with the uncertainty that was going on with the CFL playing in 2020 and COVID and all these other things. Wilder decided not to bother. So this is one of those instances where he was an Alouette in name only.
Right.
So that left a void. And even though the Alouettes had signed Tyrell Sutton, and they also have Shaq Murray-Lawrence in the fold as well, like there was still that giant hole. And we were wondering in 2021 what was going to happen with that. Well, wonder no more, Alouettes fans, because William Stanback is definitely back in the fold. And you got that 1-2 punch of both Stanback and Sutton in Montreal's backfield, with Shaq Murray-Lawrence kind of waiting in the wings a little bit. I tell you what, like Vernon Adams has to be licking his chops, just knowing, like, not only does he have so many talented receivers to throw to, but he's got some great guys to hand the rock off to as well in the backfield. Whew, boy, that is some exciting stuff.
Oh, and I agree. And it's funny that you mentioned about Big Play VA. It had been rumored, and it was finally announced that he actually did restructure his contract, and just so that the team would have a little bit more cap space in order to sign some of these free agents. And I think this just goes to show to his demeanor and how much of a leader he actually is for this club, that he wants to make sure that he has the best pieces available for this team so we can make that run and hopefully make it to the Grey Cup in 2021. So it was we've seen it happen before in sports, especially when it comes to the leaders. But it was a breath of fresh air, considering what Alouettes fans have gone over the past couple of years, and the rotation that we've had at quarterback and stuff like that. So it was nice to see our quarterback make this move and restructure his contract.
Yeah, you talk about leading by example. Like Vernon gets it. Like he understands. Like if you want to win, you got to have the best pieces in place possible. And if that meant he had to restructure his contract or take a little bit of a haircut as far as his salary goes, he was willing to do it. Like he was willing to work with the team in order to ensure that certain guys would be signed again and make sure that they stay in the mix, make sure that they stay a part of this team. So you talk about he gets it. Like he really truly gets it, and it just speaks to the kind of character that he is. Like not just an incredible player on the field, but also an incredible human being off the field. For him to understand and realize that speaks volumes to him. And once again, folks, if you're not happy that Vernon Adams Jr. is our quarterback, wake the hell up, because this is the guy. This is the guy, and he's proven it. Like, you want to talk about leadership? This, folks, is leadership.
Yeah. And then, but from there alone, we were able to find out that one of the big pieces on special teams was re-signed when we had Mario Alford re-signed for the Alouettes, along with some others on the first day. And this was back on the 15th when they signed some of these players. So Alford was one of the first players signed back for the Alouettes for 2021.
Oh, yeah. Seeing Super Mario back on the field, returning kicks for the Alouettes. Oh, boy, man. You talk about excitement. Like, this guy lit it up last year for the Montreal Alouettes on special teams. And knowing that he's going to be back there returning those kicks, those punts for us in 2021, that is awesome. I'm really looking forward to hearing the Super Mario Brothers theme song being played again after scoring an amazing touchdown.
We also had some others signed. We had Cranston. He was re-signed to the Owls. I should know how to say his name, but I don't. Is it Anuha?
Yes. Onua. I believe it is.
Some other new names also, Robinson and is it, I guess, Dormati. I'm guessing. So
yeah, some nice camp hands there. That's always positive.
Yeah, that's true. But obviously after that, it seemed that, we were talking before that. It's like, well, what about some of these others? Because we didn't really hear about these big names, so to speak. But lo and behold, holy crap, man! It just came. It was all of a sudden raining Owls players. And that's what we love to see. Geno Lewis was re-signed I thought that was into only a 1-year contract. I want to ask your opinion about that. But also Tony Washington, he was also he was hurt last year, but it's good to see that he's coming back. As I said, Vernon Adams with a slight tweak to his contract. Matt Schiltz was also re-signed. We also had Rice and Taekwon Glass, but it was. Taekwon Glass. Good to see that these guys were back under center. Adams, Schiltz, the 1-2 right there. But Washington, especially getting Geno Lewis back out on the wide side to have him be able to catch passes from our quarterbacks.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about that chemistry, and it was clear, like with Geno leading the Alouettes in receptions in 2019, you could tell right away that the chemistry is definitely strong between both he and Vernon Adams. So having Geno back in the fold is definitely a key piece. You talk about like an absolute must-have. It's definitely Eugene Lewis for the Montreal Alouettes at receiver. There's no question about that.
Any thoughts on him only signing a 1-year contract?
I think that's the norm nowadays, really, truly. And let's face it, you hear about this all the time. Like you want players to sign long-term deals so that they're committed to the city and blah, blah, blah. But then all it takes is the fact that you sign them for too much money, and you got to make those tough executive decisions and end up cutting guys like that. So I think nowadays, really, truly, like this is kind of the reality of what we're facing right now. Is I think we're going to see a lot more of these 1-year deals or 1 year plus an option deals. That really is truly the way things go. Which sucks, because if you want to buy a jersey of a player, you're doing it at your own risk. Because
which I almost did.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Thank
it's
you.
All well and
Will
good to
stand back for coming back.
There you go. That's a prime example right there. I mean, like it. Like you want to support players, you want to, let them know that, you got their back and everything like that. And let's face it, like buying a jersey is an investment. Like, they're not cheap. So
no, they're not.
You really do this at your own risk. And, but unfortunately, like really, truly, that's just the way things are in the Canadian Football League, especially with the CBA becoming due pretty soon, and just the complete uncertainty of what's to come. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, that's pretty much the norm nowadays is these 1-year deals. You just sort of do that, and for a player, you're almost betting on yourself. Like, okay, give me 1 year to show my worth, and I'll prove to you that I am definitely worth what I think I'm worth. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes on the team at that point to reward you thusly. Or if they're not going to, for any number of reasons, surely someone else will hand out the cash for you. So I think that's really truly the way things are nowadays. Like, that's just the business, if you will, of the Canadian Football League.
Unfortunately, yeah, I completely agree with you. The Alouettes also did sign their load up on local talent also. They brought back Philippe Gagnon, Christophe Normand, and you were talking about him before, Junior Lake. So they've all been re-upped for the 2021 season. Yeah.
Also, David Menard is also in that mix as well. So
correct.
You're talking about 4 Quebec-born players, 4 guys that went to university here in the Quebec, in the province of Quebec. And these guys are definite ballers. These guys are definite players as far as being able to make stuff happen for the Montreal Alouettes. We already saw what Normand was able to do last year on special teams for the Alouettes. Philippe Gagnon, when he was here, his first go around, unfortunately, he was kind of banged up a little bit, so we didn't really get to see his true potential. We talk about a guy that has played pretty well. He played fairly decent for a not so great Ottawa Red Blacks team, but for him to come back home, so to speak, is very exciting. And I'm really curious to see what Luke and Menard are going to do for the Alouettes as well, because they had pretty solid careers out for the BC Lions. And now to come back home, come back and play, so to speak, for their former head coach in Danny Machocha, even though he's not really the coach, the idea of him sort of getting the band back together, if you will, with the former Caravans, I'm really intrigued to see just how well that translates here in Montreal for the Alouettes.
I guess we'll find out. I mean, as I said, it's just about trying to get this team to gel again as well as they did in 2019, even though, as we know every year, it's not the same team every year. So it's, but the biggest drop of players, and I know
there's more.
Yes, I know you had been given a little bit of a heads up that something big was coming, and sure enough, man, holy crap, man, it happened, and it's some of these, some of our fears are going away, which I'm happy to see, but obviously the names that were signed lastly that out of the team was Christian Matt, which is and if you remember seeing Christian and Vernon at the end of the game last year, 2 years ago after the playoffs,
last year,
huh?
Well, I guess, yeah, I was going to say not last. Well, yeah, it was. I'm thinking last year in terms of 20.
Oh yeah, the last season we played.
Yes.
So you can tell that it's how important it was to have Christian back, but also, man, to get back Greg Reed, that was scary. Seeing that it was possible that we were going to lose our all-star, he has made a hell of an impact in the backfield for the Alouettes since he's been here with the team. Also, you can't, without Antonio Simmons, also Dante Absher, Naaman Roosevelt. There's a name that we were talking before. Also, the team got back a gentleman who did opt out originally when he had the chance, wide receiver rookie Fabian Guerra, and also Teo Redding. They're back under contract with the Owls.
Yeah. To have Antonio Simmons back in the fold is incredible because we saw what he was able to do on the defensive line. And as much as we don't want to think about it, folks, John Bowman may have actually played his last game in Montreal. I sincerely hope not. I sincerely hope he has a chance to finish his career the way he wants to. But God forbid we really did see the last of number 7 with the Alouettes. Antonio Simmons proved last year that he can be a force on the defensive line. And I'm really excited to know that he'll be back in Alouettes colors for 2021. Greg Reed, I mean, the name speaks for itself. I mean, like we know what Greg was capable of doing. He showed it, and we knew we had something special with this guy. The fact that he was able to turn in an all-star season last year, I mean, the result speaks for itself. I mean, and let's not forget, he's still a young man. He could still go and pursue that NFL dream if he wanted to. But I think he realized that his best bet is to keep building on his legend, keep building on his stats here in Montreal. And if he's able to turn in another successful season like he did in 2019, as far as I'm concerned, the sky is the limit for this young man. I'm really excited knowing that Greg Reed and Antonio Simmons are back in the Montreal defense. And I mean, like, these are two, as far as I'm concerned, very crucial pieces to helping Baron Miles become the defensive coordinator we completely expect him to be.
For sure. And obviously, if you hadn't heard about the Fabian Guerra story, we had him on the podcast earlier this season. Head back into our archives and listen to the story. He's looking. He is a wide receiver that obviously I've been high on since seeing him play in the Arena League back in 2019. So it'll be interesting to see how well he does when it comes to camp, because now these guys, if everything goes according to plan, because we talked about this before, Cliff, all these rookies that are coming in, they were never really going to get a shot. Were they going to get an actual shot when it came to, training camp? But didn't have to worry about it. Now, hopefully, they will get that full shot and showing how good that these players actually are.
Mm-hmm. And talking about opportunities and shots being given, guys like Dante Absher and Naaman Roosevelt, like two guys completely on a different spectrum as far as where they stand as far as like their careers go. Like Dante is just beginning his career, so to speak, with the Alouettes. He played very solidly down the stretch for the Alouettes to finish out the regular season. He's one of those guys that I think, given a little more time, a little more seasoning, could really become a force for the Alouettes and in the Canadian Football League. Naaman Roosevelt, the name speaks for itself. Mm-hmm. You know what he did out in Saskatchewan. The guy is a bona fide receiver. In fact, over the past 5 seasons, his drop rate, 1.9%. Other receivers in the Canadian Football League, their average, 7.8%.
Wow.
Like, this guy is sure-handed. This guy does not drop the football. The fact that the Alouettes were able to retain his services, even though he's okay, he's in his 30s. Like young 30s, mind you, but still, he's in his 30s. He's a veteran. But you talk about having that veteran presence, someone that can take some of these young guys like Malcolm Carter, Chris Osei-Wusi, and also Dante Absher. Get these guys under Naaman Roosevelt's learning tree. Let them sit under his learning tree and soak up that knowledge, soak up that experience, work with guys like that. My God, like you talk about iron sharpens iron. This is very exciting to be able to have someone like that in the mix.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to have guys like that in the roster. And Fabian Guerra too. That's someone else who will benefit greatly from having a Naaman Roosevelt or Eugene Lewis sort of leading the way to help these guys become better receivers in the Canadian Football League.
For sure. And obviously there were a lot of others that we had signed that were on the 2-year contracts that did not that didn't make did not take the option out. So it was good. It's good to have these guys back, and obviously we will have more names, I'm sure, coming out in the very near future. But it's begun. It's begun. Let's get together, this team, and hopefully we can make this run in 2021.
Absolutely. Like I'm very encouraged, and folks, you should be encouraged too. Like you can say what you will about Danny Machocha. Like I know we were a little on the fence as far as how effective he could be as general manager for the Alouettes, but I think for the most part he understands what happened in 2019. Like this wasn't a fluke. Like this is a good core of players, and he's just adding to it. He's just making sure that the core stays in place while adding pieces that he no doubt feels will be complementary to what is currently in place here in Montreal. And it's all about building a winning championship mentality. And I think Machocha gets that now. I think he understands just what he's got here in Montreal. And all he has to do is just keep it together so that Kahari and the other coaches on the coaching staff can help mold these players and help them become successful in this league. And that's not too difficult a task. I think the talent is definitely there. You can't hide talent, that's for sure. I'm really excited to see now what's going to happen in 2021 with this current group, as well as who else could be possibly added to the mix or retained as well. Because there's still a number of players to be signed that, as far as I'm concerned, the Alouettes should really put pen to paper to. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks and going into free agency actual free agency starting in February. To me, I think that's going to be key, is getting those core elements in place and making sure they stay in place for 2021 and hopefully beyond. And then we'll see what happens come February as far as adding new pieces to the mix. But it's exciting, Tim. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen now for 2021 with the Alouettes.
Yep. We want to thank everybody, obviously, for joining us for these full 5 seasons. We really appreciate you listening to us and hearing us ramble, but it's just a matter of talking about the Alouettes, and that's what we love to do. I do know, Cliff, that there are multiple places where people can try to find our past episodes in our archive. Where could they do so?
Well, folks, the best place to start, especially if you want to listen to previous episodes of the Montreal Alouettes podcast, is over at our website, www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. You can also subscribe to the Flight Deck on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. And if you're not already, first of all, shame on you, but if you're not already, you can follow the Alouettes Flight Deck podcast on our Twitter account at Alouettes FLDeck, or you can follow Tim and I on Twitter as well, at CliffyD or at Repacked. By all means, show us the love, because we do this for you guys, first and foremost. If you have any questions, any concerns about the show, who you'd like to see on the show, who you'd like us to interview, shoot us a message, whether, whichever account you want to, hit up on, just hit us up. Let us know what you think of the podcast. Let us know where we can improve on if you think we need it. By all means, we want to interact with you because at the end of the day, this podcast really, truly is for the fans, not just fans of the Alouettes, but fans for the Canadian Football League as well. So that's what we do this for. And we appreciate every single one of us, or every single one of you, I should say, that participates, that downloads the podcast.
What have I told you about patting yourself on the back?
Yeah, exactly, right? We deserve this.
Yeah. We will be back in 2021 to start season 6 of the Alouettes Flight Deck. We appreciate everything that you have done for us over these past 5 years. Same thing for you, Cliff. Wouldn't have been able to do the show if you hadn't been around. We do hope that everybody stays safe. Do what you need to do in order to break this curve, and let's get us back to normal so we can all be in Percival Molson in 2021. So we wish everybody a happy holidays, happy New Year. Stay safe again, and we'll speak with you soon. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.
More great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.